welcome back to my channel, Side Hustle Seattle. So today I have a little bit of a different interview. So one of the questions that I actually got from one of my followers was, I really want to break into tech, but I don't have a technical background. Kind of how can I go about that? And I thought that was a great question because I am somebody who personally works in tech, but I also am not technical at all. And there's a lot of ways that you can actually get into tech, more so than people may think. And also, there's a lot of ways some of the work that you do on the side, your side hustle, if you will, can kind of help you position yourself to get some of these roles as well. And so I wanted to bring a subject matter expert onto my channel to talk more about what that can potentially look like. And I will be upfront in saying Torie is not only a subject matter expert, she also happens to be my best friend. She was my freshman year roommate, my maid of honor. This is my girl. But she's so knowledgeable about this. And I think it's just fantastic information for people to have. So, Torie, thank you so much for being here. And I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. So, as Corinne mentioned, my name is Tori, and I am a program manager at Google. I've been at Google actually just over 10 years. It'll be 11 years in September, which is it's been a long time. And I've been in a variety of different roles. Right now, my primary focus is on our Education for Social Impact team. So we essentially help teach kids, adults, digital skills and computer science to help prepare them for the jobs of today and tomorrow. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the kind of offerings in terms of trainings and whatnot that we offer. And I would say academically, my background, as Corinne said, I went to Stanford, and I studied psychology and African American studies. So I also do come from a non-technical background and ended up in tech. And I'm also from Chicago. So
Hey, shout out. Now, what are some common kind of misconceptions that you hear about getting into the tech industry?
yeah, so I would say there's a few, and the first one I think we've kind of mentioned already, which is that you have to be technical or know how to code in order to get into tech, and that's definitely not true. There are actually a lot of non-technical roles within different tech companies outside of, your traditional computer science, software engineer, hardware engineer. So there's a lot of ways that you can get into tech and not actually know how to code. The second one, which is a little bit similar, I would say you also don't have to have a computer science degree or a traditional degree for that matter. There's also a lot of non-traditional routes that you could take. There's coding boot camps and there's certification programs, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about that a little later, but there's definitely a lot of other ways that you can get into tech as well. And then the third one, I would say there is a common misconception that you have to work at like the big tech companies, like, the Google, the Microsoft, the Netflix, the Facebook. But that's not true. Although those are like the bigger tech companies, definitely don't also be afraid to look for some of the smaller companies or startups and things like that, because there's definitely a lot of roles, both technical and non-technical, at those companies as well.
Yeah, 100%. I am a fan of like startups. Like that is my jam. If you like startups, check out Well Found because like that's a great place to find them. But you mentioned some non-technical roles. So what are some examples of some non-technical roles people may not be aware of?
Yes. So first things first, my role is non-technical. So I'm a program manager, also maybe called project manager or product manager, depending on the company. But that role itself, I really love being a program manager because the skills are so broad and that makes them so transferable. It's things like organization, spreadsheets, how to build out kind of like project trackers, being able to manage different stakeholders. And a lot of those skills are really transferable across a lot of different roles. There's also things like what's a really big market here in Chicago, sales, marketing, finance, all of those sorts of roles are also needed at these tech companies. And then another role that I worked in, so I also used to work in our people operations department, which is similar to like human resources. And every company needs human resources, right? So things like recruiting, hiring, even firing,
Yeah.
employee training, employee relations, communications, all those sorts of things are also needed at all companies. There's even things like UX designers. So if you have kind of like a creative edge, you like to design, they need folks to do that. There's even legal folks, just in case they get into any legal troubles, they have to have legal folks who are also there in the company. So yeah, there's a variety of roles, a variety of non-technical roles that you can get into at tech companies, and it doesn't always have to be your typical software engineer.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I am an operations girl. I've been in operations pretty much my entire
Yes.
career, and that's kind of where I've lived. But like you mentioned, transferable skills. So one of the things that I found, so just for a little bit of like personal information about myself, so I left my most recent company a few months ago, and I took a couple months to just kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And we all know the job market sucks right now. But one thing that I found is that some of the things that I did within my side hustles really helped position me to get the role I'm in now. And so like I put things like my remote online notary course on my resume. And it actually came up in a lot of interviews that I had because it showed that I know how to teach. It showed that I knew how to take feedback and implement that in a way that people are able to understand. And I like that you said that because there are truly a lot of things that people do on their day to day that you can then use to showcase your skills on a resume. And so I just want to kind of ask you, have you ever seen somebody's, I guess, side hustle help get them into tech? So whether that's like freelance work or passion projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So one particular friend that comes to mind, I had a friend that was like really into mobile apps development. They really just wanted to create their own apps. They actually wanted to create a mobile app game that was just like something that he played with his friends. It wasn't even something that, they were trying to like make a lot of money off of anything. It's just something that they did for fun. And I definitely saw obviously they were able to put that skill set on their resume, able to put that project on their resume, and that actually got them a job at Microsoft. And so they actually ended up working at Microsoft as a product manager and eventually a software engineer as well. I've also seen some folks do things like, for example, web design is another
Hmm.
popular kind of like passion, side hustle. They'll do like freelance projects for different organizations or companies, help them build out their websites. So if you have a little knack for a little HTML, that could be a good angle. I've also seen things like copywriting. A
Yeah.
lot of companies need copywriters, whether it's for their social media or for their emails, newsletters, things like that. So I've definitely seen a lot of people that have that just like ability to write and communicate, and able to work with different companies in that capacity, or put those skills on their resume from places that they have copywritten or things like that, and be able to get those jobs. So those are just some of the examples. I'll also mention my own. I'm like passionate, really passionate about education, if you can't tell. Hence why I kind of work in that space now, even in tech. And something that I do kind of on the side is a lot of tutoring. So I love kind of youth development, mentorship, motivational speaking. I do a lot of that as well. And so tutoring is one thing that, again, as Corinne mentioned, like you're able to show skills like being able to teach, being able to organize, and I'm also showing kind of like my experience within the education field. And so I do think that that kind of is another transferable skill that helps me within the ed tech field as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like that you had mentioned copywriting, right? Because a lot of people on my channel own their own business. Like you've marketed for yourself, and heck, you've probably helped market for a family or friend. Like that's all things that you can put into a portfolio and showcase that you have. But there's something that you touched on right in the beginning, and you were talking about, you don't always need that formal education, right? You don't always need that degree. So, like, how important is it to have a formal education, let's say, compared to more practical experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do feel like kind of back in the day a little bit, kind of the industry has evolved over the years for sure. Back in the day, I do feel like they did used to put a lot of emphasis on that formal education.
Mhm.
But today, it's definitely not like that. So before, they're like, oh, do you have a degree in this? You went to this school, etc. Again, there's so many different programs and things out there now that they really don't care as much about the degree. Things have changed. So now they're really focusing on kind of skill proficiency. And I think there are various different ways that you can kind of show that you have proficiency in skills outside of having an actual degree. So, for example, Google actually has career certificates, and these are kind of like online training programs that help you gain kind of in-demand job skills. And the great thing about those or any other certificate programs is that you don't have to have any experience. You don't have to
Hmm.
have any sort of formal education. You also are able to do it at your own pace. So, whether you want to take 3 months or a year to do it, it's totally up to you. You can do it kind of while you're working or while you're doing other jobs and projects as well. So I think that's really great. And they also have a variety of different subjects. So for the Google Career Certificates, for example, there's cybersecurity, data analytics, digital marketing, IT support, project management. If you happen to do that one, you might see a friendly face in that one. UX design. There's a lot of different things, and putting these sort of certificate programs, or even like if you do want to go the tech route and say you want to code and you want to be an engineer, there's coding boot camps as well, where you don't have to do like a formal degree. So, yeah, I think putting these things on your resume definitely helps your resume stand out because it shows that you are proficient in the skills that they're looking for. And again, these are also the on demand, these are the jobs that are in demand right now. So, being able to show that you have those skills will definitely help you stand out without that formal education.
Yeah, would you say like that's kind of the resources that you would recommend for somebody like learning kind of tech on their own, kind of going more of that certificate route?
Absolutely. I would say look into different certificates. Again, it doesn't have to be the
Hmm.
Google ones. There's like a PMP certificate if you're interested in project management. Again, there's these boot camps. So I would really recommend certificates, boot camps. Also, apprenticeships is another good resource or kind of pathway to take, and internships as well. Is essentially you don't have to have any sort of like background, experience, education, but you're able to gain on kind of on the job experience. So Google also does have, not to, obviously I'm biased, not to
Company
shame them too
mascot.
much. I know this was not intentional, I promise. Resources, what can I say? And also my team actually manages and creates these resources, so that's why I know a lot about them. But yeah, we do have an apprenticeship program as well, and I'm sure a lot of other companies do as well. So just like kind of look to see if they do. But again, you can apply to them. I actually think we are opening up another round of applications soon, so I would definitely check that
Yeah.
out. You can apply to them. You can get kind of you can get job experience on teams like project management, design. We actually had an apprenticeship on my team. It was a girl from Paris. She didn't have any formal background and experience, but she was able to kind of gain it on the job. So those are just some of the resources that I would recommend.
Yeah, 100%. And I've taken the project management Coursera course. It's all, of course, Tori's face
Did you
in
see
two
me in
different
it?
classes. I did. She's gonna look very different. It's before the
Yeah,
locks got
shorter
long, baby
hair,
locks.
chubbier cheeks.
But it was great, and it was I like that it was at my own pace. It's very in depth, which was great. So you really feel like you come out of it with a good education, and then that then led me to get my PMP, which I never would have otherwise been able to pass. And so it was just a really good segue. Now we all know it's the age old phrase, right? It's not, what you know, it's who you know. And unfortunately, especially in this market, that still rings true. So if somebody is looking to get into tech, kind of how do you go about networking with people within the tech community?
Yeah, again, not who you know. A lot of times it is not what you know, it is who you know. So being able to couple those things, I think, is super important. Number one, I would say LinkedIn. Like, I think that's a
Hmm.
really good kind of resource to use. You could actually search different companies, you can search different people that work at different jobs, you can hit people up on LinkedIn. I would say, some people are actually pretty open to taking coffee chats and things like that just to hear and learn about their experience, or some people will respond and kind of give you some information there. So I would definitely use LinkedIn to network. I think another thing that I've did as well is just join different like tech communities. So there's often like Facebook groups, Reddit threads, all sorts of things, YouTube channels of folks, right, where you could connect with other people who are also looking to do the same thing. So I'm a part of like a tech community on Facebook, and it's just helpful to hear other people's experiences, bounce ideas off of each other, be able to vent about any of your woes in the process. And similarly, I would also recommend kind of looking into tech conferences. There's
Yeah.
oftentimes different local and like national level conferences that they'll have actually tech companies there recruiting, live. So bring, brush up your resume, bring those resumes, and be able to network with recruiters who are from these companies. And again, also networking with other people in the tech industry or who looking to get into the tech industry. There's one of my personal favorites that's actually coming up in November called Afrotech. If anybody has heard of it, I've been probably 4 or 5 years at this point, and I plan to go back. It'll be in Houston this year. But that's just an example of the different tech conferences that are available. Um, and then the last thing, yeah, I would say I really do think kind of doing like freelance sort of work is an
Yeah.
interesting angle to take as well. Like again, if you are really good at copywriting or web design and things like that, being able to connect with companies, whether you're a temp, a vendor, a contractor,
Hmm.
I think that's a very interesting route to take. I have vendors that work on the work that I work on that like they're not Google employees, but they manage our social media, they manage our email marketing, they copyright our emails. And so we actually work with vendor companies who kind of like hire them to then solicit work for us. So I think that going that route is another way because then you can also build relationships and network with people inside of these companies along the way.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when you say like when people actually go to apply for these roles, like what's the kind of advice that you can give people when applying to tech jobs, especially with a non-traditional background?
Yes. I would say, because the application process can be daunting. Like I won't even lie to you. You
Yeah.
might find yourself doing hundreds of interviews sometimes. Sometimes you get yeses, sometimes you get nos.
Yeah.
But I would say my advice would be one, definitely look very closely at the kind of minimal qualifications and the skills that are listed on the site or on the job description and try to align your resume with that job description. So if it says, they are looking for somebody who has really good organizational skills, make sure you have, organizational skills listed on your resume and some examples of that within your kind of experience. I think is very important. They're looking exactly for that. Another thing I would mention, I would say don't be afraid to like find some like mock interview sort
Yeah.
of options. Find a mentor or a coach, someone who can give you feedback on your resume as well as your interview process. I think that's a good option to take because, sometimes you might think that you have it all, but then when you do it live with somebody, you're like, holy crap, this is very nerve-wracking. So just practice beforehand with somebody, even if it's just a friend and not like an official mock interview site. But yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, smart. The mock interviews, I know. Because when I'm like repeating it to myself, I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And then they ask me the same question, like, tell me about yourself. I'm like, So it's nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Having
nice to
that
get to.
elevator pitch, making sure you like have that all ready just to go. Yeah, it could be
It's
tough.
enough.
So practicing is important.
Oh, 100%. Now, I will say having worked in a tech company and also briefly working outside of a tech company, it's very different. And so for people who maybe have never been to a tech company, there's some challenges that you would face, right? Like, so what are some common challenges that you think people face as they start to transition into tech and like, how do they overcome it?
Yeah. And apologies if you hear my dog in the background. He decided it's playtime right now. So, but yeah. So, in addition to some what we've talked about before, which is just the skill part of it,
Hmm.
right? Like actually making sure if there is a challenge, making sure that you can acquire the skills that are necessary to get the job. So, in addition to that, one that I experienced kind of right out the gate when I first started was imposter syndrome. So that was a big one. And again, I also was like pretty young when I started working at in tech, and also, there was not a lot of people that looked like me as well at the company, and so very quickly I kind of started to feel like, wait a second, do I belong here? Like, am I good
Hmm.
enough to be here? I found myself, there's some really smart people that work at these companies, and rightfully so. And I kind of started just like questioning myself. You start to feel like a little bit of an imposter. Like maybe maybe my application accidentally slipped through and they made a mistake. So I really struggled with that in the beginning, but I would definitely recommend if you're somebody that experiences that, one, just know like you deserve to be there. Like you're there because you deserve to be there. You deserve a seat at the table. You're just as smart as everybody else. Just find that inner confidence and do some reflecting of like maybe unpacking like why you might feel that way and just stand in your power. You know what I mean? Like now nobody can tell me nothing. I'm sorry. Like now I'm like, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table. I know what my skills are. But it took me a while. It took me a while to like really build that confidence. And then also I would just say, like it's okay to make mistakes. Like sometimes you might mess up. Not everybody is perfect. But it's
Yeah.
okay. You learn from those mistakes, you grow from them. And also you may think that other people are like perfect or really smart or not messing up. But let me tell you, I know some very incompetent people in
Jesus, that is not the right.
yeah, there's incompetent people in high positions. Okay. So
Jesus.
so I would also just say, don't doubt yourself. Everybody is human, everybody makes mistakes. So, you're no different than anybody else. So just really find that confidence. And also, last thing I'll say is just like don't be scared to ask for help. So if
Yeah.
there are things that you're stuck on and like you don't, know, maybe you don't know what you're doing, and that kind of makes you feel a little bit insecure, just ask for help. I think, instead of spending too much time racking your brain how to figure it out, it's no shame in asking for help. So I would say that's been one of the biggest challenges that I've had to overcome within the tech industry.
HR is in your inbox. You named your team, your company. HR's in the. They're like, you were talking about me. So I was the
Well, first of
exact.
all, I
Okay.
wasn't talking about this company. I was just
Yeah.
saying, not in my company. I'm just saying in general, there are a lot of companies.
Google, get your girl. So you talked about somebody, of course, who was doing like wanted to build an app and then kind of got into product management and then became a SWE. But do you have any other success stories of maybe somebody who didn't have a traditional tech background that finally got into tech?
Yeah, so one experience that comes to mind, I actually do know there's a woman by the name of Adrienne, love Adrienne. She actually did complete a certification program. I believe she did the project management certification, and she was actually a stay-at-home mom. So she wasn't actively working. But again, if you think about it, being a stay-at-home mom, there's still a lot of skills that you
Yeah.
have to have, okay, in order to do that. Like that is a job in itself. So she was able to one, take some of those skills that she had, the organization, the patience, the leadership, and then couple that with the project management certification that she had, and she actually ended up, I believe, she ended up getting a job at Deloitte. Yes, so
Ooh,
she ended up being a small
consulting
business
firm.
advisor at Deloitte Technologies as a result of that. And one of the things that she said, she was like, I'm like, if you were to tell me that I would be working at a place like Deloitte or in any sort of tech industry, she was like, I would be surprised because she didn't have anything on her resume really. So I definitely think that that is one example. One other one I'll call out is a girl. I actually started at Google with her around the same time. Also came from like a non-tech background, like from a local kind of community college as well. And she started off in kind of the non-technical side, so like in human resources and people operations. And she actually transitioned from a non-technical role at a tech company to a technical role. Now that I think is also very interesting. So I would say even if you're interested in the tech route, like in the technical side of the of tech route, you could get your foot in the door in a non-technical role, and then build those technical skills and relationships and whatnot while you're there and transition. So she ended up transitioning from like a project manager to a software engineer, and it was
Wow.
amazing to see. She actually is still a software engineer today. So yeah, those are just some of the success stories that I've seen, but of course there are tons more.
Wow, that's crazy. I know probably like I've had that before too. I had an operations associate that I was managing that became a SWE. And then when I was at, so this was some years back, I was managing a technician, like we're talking vehicle technician, repair, turning wrenches, that became a project manager. So there's a lot of those stories. And like Tori said, it's sometimes it is great where you come into the company within a different role because once you're in, you're in, right? And then you can make those connections and network and do all of those things. And so sometimes it's just about getting your foot in the door and then, you put in the work to make the rest happen. But I would say, like, do you have any final advice for viewers who are considering getting into tech as like a pathway into the tech industry?
Yeah, so first things first, I think Corinne kind of alluded to it, but the market is crazy right now. Okay. Like technology is evolving so quickly. So I would say my first piece of advice is just really kind of try to stay abreast of what's happening and what's in demand with the job market in general, because things are moving quickly. Like you could learn a certain skill now, and like 20
Mm-hmm.
years from now, there could be something else in demand. So just kind of stay abreast of what's going on in the market. I would also say, keep learning, like never stop learning. I would say always have that curiosity for learning, because as things evolve, like even once say you end up landing in tech, it's not like, okay, I'm here now, like now we just like chill and sit back. I would definitely kind of keep learning, keep honing in on different skills. Keep, obviously AI is a huge thing right now, maybe you want to brush up and learn some just like general AI literacy. That's a huge thing. So yeah, keep having that curiosity, keep learning. And again, job market is a little bit crazy right now. You know, some companies have had layoffs. Some companies
Yeah.
might not be hiring as much as they used to. So I would just say have that patience and don't give up. You know, you may get one rejection, you may get 100. So I would just say don't give up. You know, if this is something that you're really interested in doing and really passionate about, it's not easy, but it's definitely possible. So yeah, just kind of keep at it and don't give up. And wishing you all the best of luck.
Tori, thank you so much. How can people get
Sure.
in touch with you if they want to connect?
Yeah, so you can hit me on LinkedIn. I believe my name is T Bates 1621. So TBATES 1621 is like my URL, or you can just Google Torie Bates LinkedIn TorieBates, and you can feel free to connect with me on there. I'm definitely open to chatting with folks. If any folks have any questions or want any advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I will leave links to kind of all the big things we talked about, some of the certificate programs, some of the sites you can go to, just some of the general advice. I'll leave a link to Tori's LinkedIn as well for you guys to check it out. But thank you all and catch you later.
To get choppy.